Hey, friends.
Hello. Happy spring or practically summertime?
Yeah, wow. It's been quite a spring, early summer for us. We've
Yeah.
had students out,
Multiple.
yeah, and so that's getting us to experience life in general in a different way, not just woods and nature. But then it's been raining.
Yeah, there was a pattern for a while. Sun, rain, sun, rain, sun, rain, sun, rain.
Almost,
And then rain, 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 which we can't complain because last year was a drought and we put some plants in and we were watering endlessly. So it's kind of nice, but the grass is growing very quickly. And
everything. The
oh, yeah.
plants, you see the flowers, everything's ahead. But oddly, last year I remember us saying, everything feels so abundant. It's never been so abundant, and it feels more so even this year.
Mm.
The Mayflowers, or the May apples,
There's a lot of mayapple.
all
A
the
lot
flowers
with
on them.
flowers and a lot with already putting fruit on.
Yeah.
It was a great morel year, and the golden oysters are coming now. Oh, so much.
And everything's just blossoming up. And that means for us a lot of wild edibles. And
Oh,
this
yeah.
year, I feel like we're doing more wild edibles than ever, or at least equal to last year.
We're doing our best. Yeah. It's sometimes tough to keep up with them when they go so quick, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wild edibles, balancing this out with having the students coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's one of the funnest things for people to learn, especially if you've got the green wall thing going at first.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know a whole lot of plants. And then you go out and you start learning that there's all these things out there to eat.
Oh, yeah.
It's liberating on so many levels. And I guess to start this discussion, just recognizing that when people come here, usually they have some basis. They've foraged a little bit of stuff.
Oh, there's definitely an interest.
Yeah, they've maybe tried to learn from field guides,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing like going out with somebody that knows the plants
Yeah.
and then getting to experience them firsthand. That was my whole childhood, was Peterson field guides and wilderness survival guides that had these edible plants. I tried and tried to learn. It wasn't until Samuel Thayer's books came out, that there was what I think of as actual good field
Yeah.
guide, and that expanded things a lot. But it's the actual experience with the plants that makes the real difference. But I think for us, the biggest thing here has been being in community with people who also share that, because then you all learn, you all expand each other's horizons.
You get inspired too by people who are maybe out foraging and you're not, and then you think, oh, yeah. And sometimes you can share with each other. It's nothing like a bag of freshly washed greens that are all ready to cook. Oh, gosh.
I feel like our friend Brett is always going out and discovering where the secret stashes of this or this
Yeah,
are.
he's
so
so good at that.
Yeah.
He knows where all the wild plums are and all sorts of stuff.
And then the Kit Fox family, they do, I feel like, a lot more of their
Yeah.
like actual getting food and
Yeah,
calories than
nuts
we
and
do.
wild rice, and they have a lot of staple items that, I mean, the acorn flour and all. It's so inspiring.
So,
Yeah.
so we luck out with having that community. But that's available online, if nothing else. There's groups.
You can start your own
So,
too, of just
yeah.
people who are interested. I think, thinking about learning wild edibles, I see people being interested, but I see the biggest thing that keeps a lot of people away is fear. And of course, fear is a huge thing in our lives in all sorts of places. But when you don't know something, it's easy to be fearful of it. And there are plants that will make you sick. There are plants that will kill you. However, if you're going out and you're learning and you start at the beginning and you learn safely, it becomes there becomes a system of understanding what a plant is and a way of getting to know it so that you can feel safe and comfortable. So I always tell people, don't eschew all wild plants just because you're worried you're going to get one. Start easy. And how many do you know anybody who's ever died of a toxic plant?
No, I got some statistics together here.
Ooh, statistics are good.
Yeah, but to to acknowledge what you're saying,
Yeah.
this fear, we've talked about fear of nature in general before, how we
Yeah.
tend to overinflate a fear or concern if it derives from nature, and then we underestimate a danger if it's human made often.
Right, like high cholesterol,
Right.
too much sugar.
Well, heart disease.
Yeah.
That is the number one killer in the United States. And where's that coming from? Probably largely from toxic food. Not toxic food that people have foraged out in the woods, but toxic food they have gotten from safe places like McDonald's,
Yeah.
safe places like the grocery store. And I'm not just talking about foodborne illness in lettuce or something like that. I'm talking obviously here about the processed foods
Yeah.
that are put forth as food, but really
Are
aren't.
really nutrient less in a lot of ways. Foraged foods, wild foods are so nutrient dense. You can feel the difference in your body, and students will comment on that as well. The difference of eating wild foods and eating clean foods, it changes you. And I think if you can't know that you want that change, you don't even know that it's a thing that's there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But don't forget your statistics.
Oh, yeah. I'll get to those.
Okay,
Remind me in a little while.
Okay.
Because now we have to talk about that nutrition and where that comes from. And to me, I think of that coming from basically two places. One is the soil. We did a video a long time ago showing soil in a conventional field and then walking 40 feet into the woods and seeing the soil there. I probably don't even have to say anything about it, but gray dust to this black, rich, incredible soil.
Yeah.
So in these forests, in these natural field ecosystems, swamps, things are allowed to, vegetation can fall down, recycle itself, healthy soil. And from that soil, plants pull nutrients that just aren't there when they're growing in the gray dust. And the gray dust can be organic is great, but organic does not necessarily mean that they're paying a lot of attention to their soil.
Yeah.
And then the other half of it is you take a wild plant that has this incredible nutrition profile, but then we often take that wild plant and we breed it in order to try to create something that's going to have, for instance, a higher water content. So it's bigger,
Juicier.
and juicier.
And or maybe is resistant to heat or resistant to pests or has a longer growing season.
Yeah, and we've taken that so far in today's world that often a primary concern is shipping capacity. Can these carrots, can these tomatoes, which really are just meant to be taken right out of the garden, can these tomatoes be safely packed into boxes layers high
and transported across the country or across the ocean? Yeah.
So then nutrition profile is often tossed out the window in favor of these other traits. There's a lot that happens to make a big difference between the nutrition we get from a cultivated crop and these wild foods.
It's so interesting to think about talking about the soil because there's so much that comes from the soil. And I'm an earth lover. And the thought is I'm the earth. I am the same. Whatever is the earth is me.
In a very literal sense.
I mean,
right?
There's that saying, whatever we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. But truly, actually, our food comes from the earth.
Those minerals
and that however much is in there or not in there
Yes.
is in me or not in me. It's just a kind of a fun mental idea, picture.
Those statistics.
Yeah,
okay.
those statistics.
What were we talking about?
We're talking about people who've died from toxic plants.
It was really hard to find statistics, but here I'm seeing from 1979 to 1988.
So not quite 10 years.
Yeah, I think it was the CDC. It was reporting 58 deaths from misidentified wild plants. That's 6.4 people a year.
Okay.
That 0.4 is, that guy's probably dead for sure because he's only 0.4 of a person. The other 6 are just plain dead.
Is the only 0.4 dead?
Oh, But that's true. Maybe he's not fully
You
dead.
know, like this leg here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you think about the millions of people that are foraging every year, uh, this is not a big risk, and it's a very mitigatable, is that a word? Risk.
Sure, it is now.
Because if you
Mitigatable.
know your plants, then
Okay.
I've never got. Have
Okay.
you ever gotten sick?
No.
Even though I've eaten some questionable things. That's a different story.
That's a really good story, actually. You should tell that story.
I don't know
because,
if that's a good story.
Well, listen. Wow, shoot. Now I can't remember what I was going to say.
It was very important.
Oh,
So don't forget.
Well, what were we talking about?
We're talking about plants, wild edible. Just kidding.
I know that.
We're talking about toxic poisonings that resulted in death.
I was going to say something. Oh, I can't remember now because you asked me if I've ever eaten anything that's made me sick from. No. And in fact, I know more people who've had food poisoning from eating at a restaurant than I don't think I know anybody who's ever gotten sick
from wild plants.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Now I remember.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's mitigatable because you can know your plants, but even more important is to know the plants you don't know.
Oh,
I think it's important to acknowledge, I don't know that one. I don't know that one. And because you know how human beings can be, oh, yeah, that's such and such or such and such. It's really important just to say, I have no clue.
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat it until I know. And I don't know. And so that way you can begin to approach things because we get so sure. So if you always have that, how do I know? I found that with mushrooms to be really helpful. Just to say, I don't know yet.
And not, That happens a lot when we start in our journey and we really want to identify something. That's one of the pitfalls, is that it's very easy to kind of make a plant into what you want it to be. And the method that I've been using with students, I think, really gets you around that.
Yeah, because there's
a good
system.
I do know somebody that got sick off wild plants.
Okay.
And this brings in...
actually, I do too. Yeah. I think, are we thinking the same
The difference
person?
between edibility and toxicity, which is a blurry line, and we need to talk about that.
Yeah,
but before we even talk about that, I've got more statistics.
Oh, yes.
You were talking about more people getting sick from, so...
eating out at restaurants.
Yeah. So here's the numbers per year that the CDC estimates.
This
people
is per
getting
year,
sick.
not per the 9 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
From conventional food poisoning.
Okay.
48 million people a year.
48 million people a year get sick.
From...
per year.
Yeah. 48 million. Okay. That's in the United States, which currently has a population of 333 million, which is 14% basically of people. So you probably...
When did you have time to do all this math?
Well, it's 14 point something percent. But then if you get into that point percent, it gets confusing, like the partial person. And 3,000 of those people die.
Per year?
Per year.
Okay. 6.4. And okay, but here's the...
This is restaurants, grocery stores, stuff that's supposed to be safe.
In all fairness, statistics are deceiving because how many people are eating wild food compared to how many people are eating conventional food.
Yes.
But even so, it's so drastically different. I gotta think that if you go out in your lawn and eat dandelions and you get sick, it's probably because you didn't know that there were pesticides on it from the lawn care people that come.
Yeah.
But also everybody's different. Okay, so my neighbor over here, he wasn't allergic to morels, and then a couple years ago, allergic to morels, and ended up in the hospital. So I guess I do know somebody who got sick from wild foods.
Yeah, there you go. And and that happens, allergies with all kinds of things.
Yeah, and he never was before. He had no reason to think he was, and then
boom.
Yeah.
Like all foods, it's food. We can have allergic reactions. People react differently to things.
Mm-hmm.
So
are we going to tell the story?
We just need to not separate it out so much, I think, and just see it as something to learn, where we can find and add things to our diet in the same way that we might go to the grocery store and say, let's add this new fruit, this tropical fruit, or this new bread to our diet.
Yeah.
Yes, we can talk about this.
Okay, but just I have to say one more thing. There's kind of a stigma. Yeah. There's kind of a stigma about wild foods in some ways because, they're so scary and unknown. And so then we really pay attention if we get sick or not. But, I know a lot of people who are allergic to different things, or I can't eat onions, or I don't eat green peppers, they don't agree with me. And it seems that we kind of treat that as, oh, that's normal. Whereas if you ate a wild food and it didn't agree with you, it'd
That's
be this
proof that
huge
wild foods
thing. Yeah,
are
and I'm not saying
a pro.
everybody's like that, but in this
That's
weird
out
way,
there.
we do put these categories of what's safe and what isn't safe. And think of how many thousands of years our ancestors were around before there was, quote, conventional food, or people to tell us it was safe or not safe.
That's a good point. Our ancestors have been eating these foods for a long time. And somehow,
Yeah.
here we are.
So at any rate, I just kind of wanted to point out that we should pay attention to our mental box of wild food versus not wild food. So,
Okay, the person we know that got sick.
yeah.
A young friend of ours.
Yes. And delicious cherry tree. Was it a
Black cherry.
black cherry? Okay, yeah, I can remember, because the choke cherries aren't as. That was a yummy tree.
It's a very good tree.
Super good tree. And we all were enjoying it.
His
And
mom
we were
warned me.
collecting him. Yep, she said, don't eat so much, you're going to get stomachache. Because they must be so rich in antioxidants. They're practically black.
Anthocyanins, they're just, super
and so
nutritious.
we're eating. And then some of us go, oh, whoa, you can really feel it. The way you could feel green tea or other things that are very powerful. Wow. And so some of us were going, okay, it's so good, but I'm going to stop. And he just went on and got sick.
Out again.
Yeah, yes. His body said, that's way too much. But, there's an example of a thing that in a regular amount
is actually very, very healthy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know.
So this is the line between toxic and edible. And I think we have to credit Samuel Thayer in his books with drawing people's attention to the blurriness of that line. But before that, I feel like for a lot of people, they'd look and they'd say, is this plant edible, or is it poisonous, or is it toxic? Mm-hmm. So 2 categories.
Yep.
When obviously, if we think about our conventional food, there are many things that straddle that line. Nutmeg is a famous example of something that we have perhaps in our seasonal pumpkin pie. Mm-hmm. Eat too much, and it can be pretty toxic.
Yeah.
Alcohol, obviously.
Oh, yeah. There's lots of things. I mean, even think of how powerful garlic is. We wouldn't just go ahead and eat 2 cups of raw garlic.
Right.
We would be sick. Yeah. Yep. And some things are meant to flavor. Other things are meant to be a staple. And it's learning the difference. Will you share the system that you use with students? Okay.
And this really only works if you're out with someone who knows their wild edibles already.
You can visit us.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of time and patience. But this is a way to get so intimate with a plant that you're not going to have any chance of mistaking it. So what we do is take somebody out and we find a plant. And then, for instance, I'll say to you, this plant you can touch, you can smell, you can taste. And then leave you there with this plant.
Oh, wow.
The more time you spend with it, the better. I don't give you a name. I don't tell you anything about it. But you look at the stem, you feel it.
I'm looking around to see if we have anything in our yard.
If you just pick up a dandelion, right. Mm-hmm. So
I know it's safe for me to touch it. I can smell it.
You can taste it. And you'll start to notice, if you really spend time, you're going to notice the tiny hairs on there. You're going to notice the lightness of the ribbing. You're going to notice, if you look at a couple different ones, that there's variability in that leaf shape. You're going to see the color difference between the top and the bottom of the leaf. Leaves have a feel. Some feel almost rubbery. Some are rough. Some are soft and silky.
And they're different in different places too, because this dandelion leaf looks one way, but younger dandelion leaves and some dandelion leaves in different environments look different and are a different color even.
Which is the second step to this, is you spend time with that. You really get to know this.
It's bitter, but not horribly.
Yeah.
It's good. It's kind of refreshing.
And then if we're really going to go deep with it, I, as the guide, am going to take you around, find one that is the same species, but exhibits some different characteristics. Do this 2-3 times maybe, you can really get intimate with that next one. And now, when you come to meet dandelion, it's set into you
Mm-hmm.
in this different way. You could close your eyes and feel that leaf,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to feel quite different than one of our wild lettuces back here that you feel. It's in the same family,
Yeah.
but you're going to feel a
Well,
difference
and
there
probably at different
that's
times of
distinct.
year, too. What's fun about getting to know wild plants is that it takes you out into nature and it gets you out at different times because you say, oh, how's my patch of lamb's quarters doing? Whoa, holy cow, it's going to seed. Oh, what does that look like? Okay, what can I do with that? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? And it's very different from when lamb's quarters is first coming up, and
Mm-hmm.
so many different things to learn. And I love that you keep kind of going back and getting to know it better and better and better, because this is obviously a very fresh, this dandelion is very tender. Very
Is it good?
different than at the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, it's got a little bitter,
A
but
nice
it's
bitterness.
not horrible. Yeah. I like
So,
to draw
oh, that's another great way.
draw the different plants, and if there's flowers, they're flowers or whatever else, because to me that really helps me feel, as I'm putting it, that I just learned good that I learned good that way.
Yes, we understand you.
Oh my
We
gosh.
understand you.
And I have to go out and say that as you go on the adventure of learning wild edibles, you're also going to learn not wild edibles. And that's great too, because actually a lot of not wild edibles are medicinal or beautiful, and
Have
have,
utilitarian
yeah,
uses like the
yeah,
cordage
and
of dogbane.
exactly. There's so many different aspects to a plant, and it's nice when you look down and you say, okay, yep, that's dandelion. Okay, that's black medic. Okay, that's that. Okay, that's that. And you get a sense of, you just kind of start to have that green wall disappears and things become friends. Even if you're not going to eat everything that you see, you start to just kind of have an awareness. It's enjoyable because it brings an intimacy to the world. I'm an advocate
Yes.
of that. But the thing is, you have to do it in such a way that you don't label it and call it done.
That's the danger of the naming right
Yeah.
away. Yeah. It's okay to give it a name at some point. Though sometimes I'll just share a number of names.
Mm-hmm.
Here's this common name, and here's this common name, and maybe the Latin if I know it. And then here's the name I've called it since I was a kid. Or
Yeah.
here's the name that the forest monks gave it up north.
Yeah.
White lettuce, we call dragon head right now, the
Mm-hmm.
dragon leaf, because that's what they called it up there. And it describes it in a way that you're going to recognize it much better than white lettuce. So, friends, you said friends. That is the key.
Yeah.
These plants become friends.
Hi,
Hey,
friends.
friends!
Different kind of friends.
These plants become friends, and then you get that intimacy. You feel like you're connected in with the world. When you're getting some of your food, even just a tiny bit
Mm.
from the wild plants, you have a different connection with nature than you're going to get through almost any other means.
So,
Yeah.
eating wild food isn't good for us just because it's nutrient dense and because it has that amazing soil that feeds it and then feeds us. It's also good for us because we get to be more intimately connected with the world. And often when you're gathering, you get to have other nature experiences and other encounters. And so it becomes this whole picture and not just what food am I going to eat. And that's a really magical experience when you sit down to have a meal that you've put wild food into. It's very different than just pulling something out of a box, or even off of a grocery store shelf. And there's something about that that I think nourishes us on a deeper level than just giving us the calories and the nutrients that we need. So that's why we advocate foraging. Some of the basic, biggest reasons, there's so many.
And it's delicious.
Well, yeah, it's so fun. You have to
Oh,
expand your palate, but really, I feel as though our common standard American culture, the palate that we have, a lot of us, not everybody, is begging to be just
hmm.
opened up because it's been narrowed for us. The choices have been narrowed for us. and they've been psychologically programmed into us so that we will be consumers of these products. And there's something about picking up a berry. I'm thinking of a partridge berry, which really, it has this amazing texture. But at first, if you just popped it in your mouth and you're like, yeah, it doesn't taste like anything, right? But you sit with it and it begins to have flavors, and something doesn't just have a flavor. It has a beginning and a middle and an end. It has different levels, and that's what wild foods do for us too. They ask us to become engaged with our taste buds and say, what is there and what could this be, and how many different ways could I start to play around with this? And I think that's really important for our lives. We feed off of novelty, and the wild world is always got something new.
That was the best part of this whole thing.
Thank you.
That was so, as you said that, it felt inspiring, because our cultural quest for comfort, we limit the lines, the path of life so much that we miss out on so many things. You said that dandelion had a hint of bitter in it, and bitter we often think of as just a bad flavor that we're trying to avoid, and yet it can be an incredible flavor if you open yourself to it. And the flavors out here that's one of the things that astonishes people the most when we do wild edible walks. There's sours, there's black licorice flavors, there's sweetness,
there's tingly, there's all
sensations.
Sorts of
Wow.
Okay, so you're inspired, hopefully. How do you do this? Let's say you don't have somebody that you can go walk around with, or you've tried and there isn't someone in your area, but you really want to do this. What do you do? How can you do this?
Yeah. So groups, as we said. Simultaneous field guides are really thorough and will help you out. There's some websites. I'm thinking of Green Dean, I think he's down in Florida, that do a pretty good job of describing things. And
can I throw in a little positive flag for technology here?
Yeah,
we're not techie people, but there are apps that you can get for your phone that are photo ID apps. And I wouldn't say, okay, now that tells you what it is, but it is a place to start. Sometimes when we're out in the field and we are racking our brain, what is this? We haven't seen this. Gosh, this is new. Or we're someplace different, a different environment. When we went down south to see the eclipse, we didn't know some of the plants there. And we might have had instincts, but getting a photo ID, it starts to list a couple of the options, and then you can start to cross-reference. If you have a good book, you can check Sam Thayer's. Okay, maybe it's not in there, maybe it's not edible.
Yes.
And you can start to look around and say, oh, okay, it gives you the characteristics. You can start to learn, oh yeah, the stem is kind of hairy, it's got a little purple on it, and you can have a place to go. So that's a shout out for. Do you have any names of apps that you could recommend?
We use PlantNet, and then
is that free?
That's free.
Okay, PlantNet.
Yeah, and there are some others, but that's the one that we use that I'm pretty familiar with, and it does a good job.
So,
but as you say, it's not you don't do that and say that's my ID.
Yeah, it's just to help you get started. The other thing is, and again, this is the same kind of thing, but there are groups online through Facebook, through other social media, probably Instagram. I don't do a whole lot of that, but we have a local area folks that just want to know about plants, and someone will post a picture and say, anyone out there know what this is? And that's another great place, because some people are very knowledgeable and they'll tell you all about it, or someone will say, oh, I think it's this, and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but it's a great place to start. And anybody who loves plants, I'm guessing you could ask them. If you were really, really stumped, write to someone, write to Sam Thayer and say, hey, I've looked through everything. I don't get what this is. A lot of times they'll be happy to say, oh, that's a blah, blah, blah. Here's the Latin name.
Yeah. You know what? We actually have a good playlist on here too, on
Oh
our
yeah,
YouTube
yeah.
channel, that we've gone pretty in depth on some plants. So there's another. I'll try to remember to put that playlist up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how to get started, and then get yourself excited about it by making some good things. Remembering that wild foods are not just greens; they are a whole host of different. You can go online and find some great
There's so much fun.
recipes.
I'm thinking about the Forager chef. He
Yeah.
takes it way to the top. I mean, he's this crazy chef where you could do almost anything imaginable. And, you know, he's on the one end. And then there's other things, simple things, you know, just some dandelion fritters. It's pretty simple,
Yeah.
you know, and you can make up your own things as well. So you can go all out, or you could just say, I'm going to use these nettles as I would spinach, and I'm going to put that in my lasagna tonight.
Yeah.
So there's so much
We did something
versatility.
similar to that the other day. Just
It
used
was
wild
great.
greens instead of spinach, or even in addition to
Yeah.
spinach. I'll have to drop our horta recipe quick,
Okay.
because I think
Is
that's...
that where you're putting it up here and I get to go like that? Or I can't?
No.
Oh, dang. Can't you make that work?
Oh,
Right here.
yeah. Actually, I should be able to do that.
Okay.
Put up the video for it. So instead of me trying to describe it, we'll put up the video for it. Okay.
It might not be up there, but it would be really cool if it was.
We'll try. And I think that's it. This is such a rewarding thing to get into.
Start with easy plants. Don't pick stuff that has toxic lookalikes. Just pick stuff that's abundant, that's everywhere, that's easy, you know.
You can just add a couple a year.
Couple of years to your life by
You
eating.
will, yes. Unless you're one of the 6.4.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of scary.
So, share in the comments.
Yeah, let's make this a place where if you're looking for a group too, maybe say, hey, I'm in Oklahoma. Anybody got some good resources, and we can share and start making more groups. Everybody should be foraging. Okay, I have one last story. Okay. We were asked by this wonderful woman a number of years ago to come out and walk through. She had lots of fields. They did farming, but she had a ton of woods. And she said, I just heard about you, and I know our woods must have wild foods, right? So we go out and we're talking to all of these people. It's just her family and some friends, and it's all these farmer guys, and just, you know, their wives and stuff.
Farmers,
And we go in the woods first, and they're all, oh, this is great. And then we get to the field, and we start going, oh, look, this is this, and you can eat this, and oh, here's this, you can harvest all of this. And one of the farmers said, what have I been doing farming all these years when I could eat everything that's here? It was just...
all the weeds that he had been trying to get rid of were foods.
Yeah.
And so eye-opening and exciting, I think,
he was so excited about it. He just thought it was the silliest thing. So that's the thing to remember, is this wild food is everywhere, and it's not all the other things, all the other positive benefits. It can also lighten up, you know, the money that you spend on other food, because if you start supplementing with wild food, gosh, not only are you getting everything else, but hey, maybe you don't have to go to the grocery store as much.
And honestly, we'll sit down sometimes to a plate of food. I remember being at my mom's, and she's into foraging too, sitting down with wild mushrooms.
We had morels, we had wild leeks, we had fiddlehead ferns, and it all on our plate at the same time. And we looked at each of these things and we thought, do you know how much people charge at, let's say, at a co-op?
Yeah.
She's in the Twin Cities. Each plate would probably be $50. But we just gone and got it that afternoon.
Yeah, our cost was going out and having a beautiful walk in nature.
Well, okay, you can tell we could probably talk about wild plants, especially forageable ones, forever. So we want to hear from you, and if you've got questions, check out our playlist and our video on horta, and then just let us know. Tell us what wild foods you love. Share recipes. This should be about fun and about really getting our hands into that wild food.
Make these comments a resource. The video is one thing. The comments, that's where the gold is, where you leave your wisdom, your ideas, your inspiration, form groups. Let's use that resource down there, my friends.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, love to you all.